Hey there guys, this is Nick back again with another video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to disassemble and service your Aomai Flint Torch lighter. So the first things you're going to need are a pin of some sort, something to poke out, and a couple screwdrivers. This one has a long, medium-sized flathead as well as a smaller Phillips screwdriver. And then a thin flathead. This will be for prying and pulling things. Jeweler screwdrivers work really well for this, but if you have something else that fits, then you can also use that. First thing you're going to do, take your Phillips head and you're going to just unscrew the bottom. This is what I initially said was to change the flint, but when I removed it myself, I found out that I was incorrect. So I'll be correcting a few of those things that I talked about incorrectly in this video. So once that screws out, what you're going to need to do is you're going to pull slightly at the top until it clicks. Take your thin flathead, go underneath the switch, and pop it out. Once that's done, you can just remove the entire body, which reveals the internals. And the internals look a lot like most other lighters, but we're going to be going over some things that are particular to this one that makes it different from others. First thing that you'll probably notice is that at the bottom, this is where the flame is adjusted. Now, from here, we can see that this portion does lift up. If we take our small screwdriver and put it underneath, we can lift up this plastic part and stick it onto a different position, making the flame larger or smaller if we need to. This can be done just in case there's a manufacturing difference and your flame isn't big enough or it's too small. Sorry, if your flame is too small or it's too large. Right next to it is an O-ring that goes from the bottom and sits where the screw goes, just to keep everything nice and plush and locked down. Moving towards the middle, we can see the gas trigger mechanism here. Here is moving towards the middle, we can see the trigger mechanism here, which is this white piece of plastic that pushes this metal lever, which releases the valve, allowing gas to flow up this silicone tube and into the jet. This jet is what will become clogged if you use inferior butanes. Say sometimes these lighters come pre-shipped with fuel and it may not be the best fuel in the world, so what I and a lot of other people recommend doing is to completely purge the lighter of whatever fuel's in there and put in some nice triple refined Colibri or something else that you may want to use that you use in your other lighters. What we can do now is we can take the whole thing apart by taking your pin for poking and poke here at this locking pin. What this will do is this will push the pin through the other side, which we can remove, and now the whole thing is free to move around. If we need to service the jet, then we can take this hose off. We could blow some compressed air into here, which is the jet, and hopefully clear out any blockage, or try to poke something in there, which will also work. What I want to pay close attention to this time though is there is this large flathead screwdriver slot here. This is to replace the flint, which is what we're going to look at now. So if I just pull off the hose entirely, this is going to be a pain to get back on later, and you'll see why. Take our medium-sized flathead and unscrew from the top. The whole thing will come out. The large screw. There's a spring in here, as well as if we turn the whole thing over, what comes out is this little pin as well as the piece of flint itself. Here's how we change the flint in this lighter. In case it gets really low, if you really love this thing and you use it a lot, this is what you're gonna need to do to replace it. To put it back together, what we wanna do is we wanna slide the flint in first into the hole. This pin is important to put it in the right direction though. We want to insert it with the pointed end facing up. That way we can make sure that the spring aligns properly and it doesn't apply too much pressure. If you put it in backwards, so if you put it in with the flat end facing up, what will happen is it'll put too much spring pressure on and you won't be able to actually ignite the flint at all. So insert it down. Put the spring back in, and then the screw, first couple turns are the hardest because you're fighting against spring pressure before the threads start locking. But essentially what you want to do is just screw the whole thing down until it sits flush again. It's a little difficult to do when I'm not that close to it. There you go. It's back in, we can test it. Still sparks, so we're good. Now, the hardest part about this is to put this back in without the other end of the flex hose coming off. This little rubber or silicone hose is very difficult to deal with. Just because whenever we try to slip it back on, it always seems to loosen itself. So I try to use the end of the cap to try to help guide it on. So otherwise it becomes too wiggly and it just moves itself out of the way. All right, I have got it back on. So we can see that it's facing backwards right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna carefully turn it around so that the hose doesn't come off again. And it slipped off. Because it slipped off, the whole thing has to come off. I like to use this technique where you take your pin, slide the rubber hose over it, go down into the jet, slide the whole thing down. That way, you'll at least have one contact point secured fairly easily. This time I got the hose on by poking at it with a screwdriver and kind of coercing it until it just fit on. Once you have everything reassembled, take your pin, slide it back in. Here's where we could actually test it. So what we're gonna do now is find that little metal lever from earlier. We could push it up. If we hear gas flowing, then we know we're okay. Sounds good. We're gonna reassemble it, so we take the body, slide it back. Probably notice that here there is a hole But don't let this fool you, because the switch here has a pin that fits in there, but you can't fit it in on this side. It has to go in with a pin near the bottom of the lighter. So put the hole down more. Take your little clip, the switch, push it down, make sure it contacts everything, push everything down as a unit, and then what we can do, screw it back, and then test it to make sure it still works. That's all I got for you guys this time. Take care. Bye now.